Hello and welcome to another knitting pod. I am Lena and welcome to this space where we chat about knitting and fiber and life and books and all sorts of other things. I'm so glad you're here. If you're a returning viewer, thank you for coming back. And if you are new here, I hope you enjoy this episode. I have to be completely honest with you from the beginning. I normally don't talk about life stuff until the very end of the podcast because it's a knitting podcast. And maybe you are solely here for the knitting. And in that case, I never want to take up time, your valuable time, when you don't really want to give it to something else. But I have to start by saying I'm very distracted this morning. I have so much knitting content to share with you, and I'm so excited about it. But I'm having a motherly, how to put this nicely? If you've been with me, you know I have two kids, and my son is 14 and my daughter is about to be 10. And of late, my son has had some issues with a specific teacher. And the last conversation they had, I did not like what was reported back to me one little bit. And I know I appear to be a very sweet and nice person, but if you mess with my kids, the rhino's coming out. It's like the inner rage of the mother is nothing to mess with, and I requested a meeting with this teacher and I'm waiting for a response. So right now I just have like all this roiling rage in myself. Anyway, I just wanted to share that with you because if I am slightly off or extra fiery, that is why. Wish me luck and wish him luck because nobody wants to deal with an angry mom. But anyway, that is that. Let's put that aside and take this beautiful October. Oh, it's November. Oh my gosh, it's not October anymore. This November Friday in 2023 to talk about fiber for a second. Because here's the deal. I need the distraction from my life and you might need the distraction from yours. So thank you for being here and let's do it. Really the only knitting project I'm gonna show you of my own today, despite the fact that I have many projects on many different needles right now, is the baby blanket I've been working on. I started a baby blanket for a dear friend of mine. I'm using Stephen West's Melting Marl blanket, which he made into a very large blanket. I'm modifying to make into a baby blanket. And before I do that thing where I just talk and talk without showing you, let me show you. I have made an incredible amount of progress since we last met. It's quite hard actually to even show you. Look, I'm just gonna let myself get out of the screen and show you where we are. We are, I fear, almost at the end. And I say I fear because I cannot tell you how surprised I am how much I have enjoyed working on this project. It has been just exactly what I needed in my life from a project right now. It is colorful, it is interesting. It's that Goldilocks zone between boring and too challenging. It keeps my attention. I have to pay attention, but I can also, watch a basketball game with my kids or listen to an audiobook or whatever it is, hold a conversation. It is just the perfect knit. I expect nothing from less from Stephen West. So what to say? It's funny that I say it's mindless because last week after I taped, I was editing my podcast and I was working on this while I was editing it. And I don't know what I did in one of the rows, but like a couple of hours later, I looked back and there was like this huge hole. So do you see how this section has these big eyelets? I guess I had made one in the wrong place because I was not thinking. and there was just like this random huge hole in the middle of this stripe. And normally I am one for leaning into mistakes because I really think they are only visible to us. But in this case, a giant random hole made by a double yarn over is far too conspicuous when it's not in the right place. Like you can see how they're supposed to line up. This one was just like random. So I literally had to tink back many rows to get back to where I could fix it because there was just no way to drop down a column and fix it. And it's still not fixed perfectly, but I can't even like see it. So it's fine. So there are places in this pattern where it's easy to get mixed up. It's a 2-row repeat, and it would be very easy, as I did, to, I think, throw in the wrong pattern into the wrong row, which then would create an issue. So if this is on your radar, just kind of keep that in mind that yes, some of it is kind of easy knitting, but it is not just garter stitch back and forth. There are 3 chevron wave kind of patterns in this blanket, and my favorite one by far is both to knit and aesthetically. Here, I'll try to pick where it shows up the best, is this wave pattern, the green. It's just so fun. It's an 8-row repeat and it's so fun, and I think it looks so beautiful. My second favorite is these eyelets. I think they're really fun. And my least favorite is this kind of flat-topped pearl ridge section. It's just, you have to really count the stitches, and I kept getting off one and having to kind of fudge the stitch count, which I didn't love doing. So that is all about the stitches. I also forgot to tell you guys last time that I did not start out with an I-cord cast on. I was so keen on jumping into it, and an I-cord cast on would have taken me a hot second. So I just did a regular old cast on, and then the side is kind of like this I-cord look, which I think is absolutely beautiful. And if you have the patience and wherewithal and you want to do this, do it. I just knew I was on a timeline, and I knew I was going to cast on and be out in the world, and I didn't want to be doing an I-cord. So what else? I told you guys last week that the fun of this has been working through the color melting, the color progression, the marling. Y'all, I cannot tell you how much fun it has been, especially because it's not like this was an advent calendar and I had like a big set of yarn that goes together. This is all yarn in my stash. And I have so much, I could make 10 of these blankets, that it's just really fun to kind of try to make it work. I just started with this yellow and moved through these colors that were very melty. I really wanted to make sure I was not going in a rainbow order. That was like my only constraint for myself. Because sometimes what I do is I'm working with a lot of color because I love color. And I think I default to rainbow order because it's going to look good. It's nature. Everything nature does looks good. So a rainbow is just like, to me, like a default way to work with color. This time I really wanted to challenge myself out of that comfort zone and work with color in a more artistic free way without worrying about it. So I have to say, I love how it turned out. I told you guys last time I was out of town when I made this transition, and it's not a transition I would have made if I were at home. And I actually ended up loving it because it's just unexpected. It's bright colors, primary colors, and it goes into these moodier colors. And then my absolute favorite part of this shawl is this center part. I moved up through with some peachy speckles, and then these are all Hedgehog Fibers. And this is also, I can't remember, I think it's this rose hip. But then here where you see the mohair, I held a single Pearl Soho line weight. It's a single strand. It's not a plied yarn. I held it double with some stash mohair. And I just think that, I have to say, is the star of this blanket, because it just adds a textural variation that just makes it look elevated. Do you know what I mean? I honestly wish so much that I had added another bit of mohair somewhere else down here, but it didn't happen. I don't really know why. I think I kept thinking there was time to add, and I think I'm at the end, and I'm so sad, y'all, because, you know, it's a decent width, but you need it to be proportionate, right? Like a 5x7 probably proportion. So I can't just make it like super long and narrow like a scarf, even though I really do want to keep going on and on because it's so much fun. So anyway, I moved up from this coral into this hot pink, and then I blended it into this colorway, which is Shiver by Hedgehog Fibers, which I absolutely think is just the perfect transition from here to here, because even though the colors are so different, this has those hot pink speckles that just look amazing. And in full transparency, I'm gonna reach over here for a second. I had transitioned from this white, intending to go into this. I love this yarn, this colorway. This is Undercover Otter. It is also a single. It is called Bubblegum Crisis. And I love this skein. This skein I bought from Stephen and Penelope a couple of years ago when I ordered a kit from them. I did not order a kit from them for the MCAL, but I had made my own color combinations for one of the MCALs, and I threw in this and Slumber Party because I just loved the colors. I thought that this color combination was so unique. It's like this very primary Smurf blue with this gorgeous bubblegum pink, and it also has these black speckles. I think Undercover Otter does a better job with, not a better job, I'm sorry, an incredible job with color and unique variegated yarn at the same level as, oops, I'm sorry, my phone was trying to tell me something. I don't know if that disrupted my video recording, but whatever. It's telling me something about the Wi-Fi network, which I don't really care about right now. Anyway, Undercover Otter does such a fabulous job with color. I think Aiden has such a unique point of view. I've talked about it before. I think superwash, kind of that sock yarn world, is so hit or miss, and Undercover Otter is a hit. I wish it was more accessible in the US. At least I don't know where to buy it in the US, but also I'm not using superwash yarn or purchasing it as much anymore because I have so much. I'm trying to enjoy what I have. But anyway, long story short, I bought this. The story's already long. I don't know why I'm saying long story short. I bought this yarn intending to use it years ago, but it just doesn't go with anything. Case in point, I transitioned to this and it looked so bad. I'm not gonna lie, I was very disappointed. I knit like 4 or 5 rows to give it a chance, because at first I was like, whoa, that transition looks really off. It just looked like everything here, even though it's kind of wacky and crazy, everything here made a certain amount of sense in terms of a progression. And throwing in that blue was just like completely like some random person came in and picked up the project. It just didn't fit the story of the piece. So I was and it's funny. So I set it up on the back of a chair and I called my husband over and I was like, okay, sit there and tell me what you think I'm going to say about the blanket. And he's looking at it because he's been watching me make it. He's like, that blue is so random. And I was like, great. So like that just solidified to me that I wasn't just being paranoid. So of course I had to rip it back, which is not super fun, but at the same time, it's totally doable. If you've got like, as I had, a stockinette row, like of just knit stitches to as like the end point of where you want to go back to, easy. You can really easily go back, use a really tiny needle to pick those stitches up. If I hadn't had that, it would have been a lot harder because I was not planning on tinking back 5-6 rows of knitting. So I ended up deciding to transition with this color. I believe this is either Hedgehog Fibers, Monet or Budgie. It's one of those. It's old. But this transition feels a lot more like it fits what's happening here a lot more. So I'm thrilled I took the time to rip it out. Because like I said before, there's certain mistakes or choices we make that we can like learn to love. This was going to bother me. And I want to feel really good about giving this baby blanket. I love this friend. And I also, she's very into art. She has like a really beautiful eye. Like if you go, every time I go to her house, it's the kind of home that is so welcoming and cozy and thoughtfully decorated in a way that's so authentic to her. It's such a lovely expression of them as a couple and a family. And she had just recently got this huge, beautiful, I don't know if it's a photograph or a painting. It's of this bright bird. And it's this weird angle, so you can't quite tell at first what you're even looking at, but it is so beautiful. It's just, wow. And that is why I started with these colors, because these colors show up in that painting or photograph. And because I was trying to make it go with that art, I did not want to just like fudge it completely and ruin the vibe of the whole thing. Anyway, as you can see, I am trucking through this because it's just a joy. I cannot even tell you like how much fun it's been. If you have any inclination to make this in any form, please go for it because it's such a good project. Like I find that it lifts my spirits because it calms me with the stitches, but then watching the colors unfold and interplay, it's like why we all love brightly colored superwash yarn. And even though I really have turned into a lover of non-superwash woolly wool, this makes me realize like why I enjoyed this type of yarn to begin with. And it's the perfect way to use this kind of yarn. I'm honestly really sad that it's almost over. And I had said last time that I don't think I'd have the knitting stamina to knit the like large size, but I can actually imagine going on with this. Like I could imagine keeping going because it's that fun. If I do end up having enough width to add a little more length, like one more color combo, I will use this one. This is Park Life by Hedgehog, and I love it. It's one of my absolute favorite colorways from them. It's so beautiful. Like it's such an unusual tone of green. It's not too minty. It's not too like piney. It's just beautiful. That's just a brilliant colorway. Like, and then the way she's done the speckles, like, I don't know if you can see the neon yellow and pink. And it's just, she's brilliant. I'm telling you all. I would love to work this in because I got a little carried away with this middle section. And so there is a lot of pink and I have a feeling this is going to be a boy. I don't know. She doesn't know, but I really intuit that it's going to be a boy. And I have no problem using pink for a boy. I just would have liked to balance it out a little more with some green, but I think on the whole, I don't know that it fits this way, but on the whole, I think the color story is appealing to anybody. I had one more thing, if you can imagine, to say, but I can't remember. I don't remember what I was going to say, unfortunately. But I love it. It's fabulous. I highly recommend it if you need a project like this over the holidays. And, you know, we're always looking for ways to use up those odds and ends. And this is not one of those projects that's forcefully using those and then you end up with something that you're kind of like, meh. It is just one of those projects that looks like you just have a lot of resources and tools to be artistic, and that's how it's coming across to me. So in the spirit of, okay, so back up. There was a moment pre-knitting for me, I know, because I've only been knitting for a few years, and I don't quite exactly know what year it was that marling was like huge. It was when Andrea Mowry was doing that find your fade and free your fade and all the different fades of, you know, working with one yarn and blending it out to a different color. And she did the comfort fade cardi. There was so many. And then Stephen West was also doing so much in his designing, like of his interpretation of marling and fading. And it was just a thing for a while, you know? And I think as all things, they come and they go. And I think that whole vibe, that moment is sort of over. But this project is making me really think we need to bring it back, because there's a reason it was such an appealing thing for everybody. It's fun, and knitting is supposed to be, it's supposed to sparkle and light you up. Like there's enough darkness and enough mucking through life going on. Knitting should be like, oh my God, I can't wait to go sit down and knit. And not, there's a difference, we've talked about this before, between the process and the finished object. Like there have been knits that I am like slogging through because I really want the finished product. But there are also knits that, like this, are just such a joy in the process. And to me, ideally you want both, but sometimes those process knits are just what we need. So I made a list of some similar vibe projects that you might find appealing if you are feeling the Scrappy Marl playing with yarn I have in my stash vibe. There's the obvious ones, and they are not on this list, and they are from Andrea Mowry and Stephen West. I don't think I have either one of them on this list because I think they've got enough spotlight like every day of the week. I really wanted to pull to the forefront some other designers that have done beautiful work, beautiful designing in this space. Okay, so that is where we are going for the rest of the pod. Okay, we're gonna start with one that I was kind of like, huh. And then when I clicked on a picture close up, I was like, so that just won my heart. I absolutely love this shawl. It is called the Black Elephant Shawl, and the designer is Rachel Ilsley. I actually came upon this designer because of one of you. One of you sent me this a colorwork sweater of hers that you were keen on making or you were about to make. But that was several months ago, and that's how I started exploring her designs. I, by the way, love it when this happens, you guys. I am no Ravelry expert, so I sometimes have a hard time trying to figure out how to create a search that will give me the results I want and introduce me to new designers. There's even a Ravelry class at one of my local yarn shops. I should probably take it. It just seems so absurd to have to take a class, but caveman over here probably should. Anyway, so one of you introduced me to her. I believe it's Unwind Knits or something like that is her storefront name. Beautiful color work, really intricate and delicate, beautiful, beautiful, unique point of view on color work. This is not color work. I think this might have been designed to use up an advent calendar or something, but I'm going to insert pictures here for all of them. But this shawl is so beautiful. Like, what I like about it is very similar to this baby blanket. It not only is going to help you, it's not only going to keep you transitioning colors, but also different techniques. And to me, I found that is just the happiest I am when I'm knitting. Like, if something is just like over and over and over repetitive, I get really bored. For instance, I love brioche, but do I want to make a brioche sweater or shawl or, God forbid, blanket? I do not. I love some shawls with like chunks of brioche or a brioche hat or whatever. Small bits of brioche. I believe this piece has small bits of brioche in it. I also love how the shaping is kind of unexpected. The lines, I don't know if it's short row shaping or what, but it's not so obviously just a triangular shawl. Do you know what I mean? There's some shaping within the shawl that I just find really appealing. I think the subtle color progression she's used is really, really pretty. I think we all have lots of yarn. Like, one of my favorite colors is lavender, gravender, that whole world. And I have so much yarn with tones of that. And I think it would be really fun to use it in a piece like this. So that is the Black Elephant shawl. If you are looking for a scrappy shawl project. 2 hat projects. I'm going to take a quick sip of water. Excuse me. They're 2 hat projects, both scrappy, but both very, very different. The first one is just, I absolutely love this hat and I want to make it so much. And maybe I'll make it. That's actually a good idea. When I'm mourning the end of this, that might be a good little transition project. It is the Scrappy Marl Hat by Betta Jezik of Hedgehog Fibers. It is a true beauty. I adore the colors she's used in her sample. It's so bright and happy and appealing, and I think anybody would want to wear that. It's such a fun, funky piece to use up yarn. Similar to this baby blanket, she's marled 2 strands together, and she's dropped one strand and picked up the other, and to blend between the sections. So not every faded project holds 2 strands of yarn together. For instance, I believe the Black Elephant shawl is just 1 strand. I think it's easier to find blending when you can pick up 1 strand and drop another and actually blend the colors together. But there's all sorts of ways to do it. It depends on what you have in your stash. And it depends on what kind of look you're going for. If you're going for a more striped, funky look, then you don't need to worry so much about marling. If you're looking for a much more faded look, something like this is super fun and a small project, because we're always making these big shawls and sweaters, and sometimes you just want something fun and closer to instant gratification, like something you can finish in a week or 2. Another hat that has a completely different look but is very looks like an absolute joy for you color work enthusiasts. It's the Seaglass Hat by Wool and Pine Designs. Wool and Pine has some beautiful work. Some of their color work sweaters are just out of this world. So stunning. I'm so sorry. My throat is so dry today. And this hat is so unique. I've never seen a hat made like this. It is 1-by-1 color work. So you're literally knitting each row. 1 color is in each stitch. So it would be a fabulous project to hold the yarn in your left hand and just pick each color. I just think that sounds so fun. It has more of a pixelated look rather than that blendy fade look. So that's why I wanted to throw both of these hats out there, because they both utilize color in such unique ways. And again, this is where I feel so lucky to have such creative people in this space. just filling Ravelry with options for so much fun beauty. Anyway, so those are the two hats, two smaller projects I have for you, the Scrappy Marl and the Seaglass Hat. Moving on, another throw. Now, if I had remembered this, because this was deep in my queue, deep in my favorites, and this is what happens, right? Like we keep adding and adding and adding to things we want to knit in our Ravelry queue, and sometimes we forget, and they're like 5 pages deep. So this is the Habitation Throw by Helen Stewart. Now, this would have been a perfect baby blanket also. It's kind of similar. Rather than the chevrons or waves, it's diagonal, and then there's these long eyelet sections that separate the colors. So it seems less blendy, but oh my gosh, I think it is stunning. And again, you can make it whatever size you want. I don't know how it's constructed. I don't know if it is knit on the bias, like diagonally, or what. But Helen Stewart is so prolific and so talented, and she is high on my list of designers to try, and I haven't tried her. It's such a bummer because there's just not enough time to knit all the things I want. I feel like I literally need to pray for another set of arms because I would love to knit like all of her shawls. They're so beautiful. They're so, I don't know, lush and intricate, and she just has a really beautiful aesthetic also. But this, I love the colors in this particular piece, this sample. It's more muted, and it looks so cozy and appealing. I think it would be gorgeous in like a couch throw size. I think it can get pretty aggressive to make like a big bed size blanket. Now that is quite an undertaking. But in a smaller form or as a baby blanket, I think this Habitation Throw is just so gorgeous. And y'all, it's Advent season. I know y'all, a lot of you have Advents coming your way in December, which I am very jealous of. I have no Advents because I am drowning in yarn as it is. I have so much yarn that I need to enjoy and work with. I didn't want to do any more Advents. And I also like to leave room for when I have to knit a project because it's just all sparkles, and then I want to go out and buy yarn for it, like the right yarn for it. I like to leave space for that so that I don't feel guilty. Anyway, that is not on topic, but my point is an Advent calendar would be a fantastic way to use would be great to use for the Habitation Throw. Okay, we are moving right along. True Colors by Melanie Berg. I am actually going to pull up a picture because I need a refresher. This is a gorgeous shawl, and it has, for those of you who really liked this chevron wavy pattern in the Stephen West blanket, I know he's got lots of melting marl patterns, like a hat and a sweater, and I believe even a shawl, but they do not have the chevron pattern. Most of them are just like, I'm pretty sure the shawl is just, half circle type shaping. If you are really into that chevron look, this is for you. I think it's a gorgeous shawl. I love triangular shawls. I believe it's an asymmetrical triangular shawl, but the way she's done the color fade, it's gorgeous. It leaves room for endless interpretation and playing with colors. I think the way that she has done the fading here is so brilliant. I wish I had thought of it myself. So what she's done is faded the colors or used the colors in like 75% of it. And then at the end, she's flipped the script where she's using that gray as the main color. And then the interspersed eyelet border, eyelet rows are the colors. And it just makes it so interesting looking. Like That's just brilliant. What a fun use of color, very unexpected. And I have started to love eyelets and lace, like simpler lace work. I used to really dislike it, and now it's actually becoming something I really enjoy. And as you can see, this is probably one of the pieces that converted me. This is the Ranunculus by Midori Hirose. All of you know this pattern. I've worn it here before. But anyway, so yes, I absolutely love this pattern. I'm not quite sure as I look at it if that is lace mohair or fingering weight yarn. So we'll have to investigate. I will leave it in the show notes. Okay, what else? This one. I was very disappointed because when I saw this one months ago, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna make that. That is so me. It is the Bluegrass by Woolen Pine. I guess this is the second Woolen Pine pattern I'm sharing with you today. This is a gorgeous shawl. I'm gonna pull up my picture if I can find it so I can speak from, yes, I knew it had fringe, but I just had to confirm. It has this spectacular fringe. And why do we love this? We love this because fringe, the end. But we also love this because when we're working with all this color, it can get a little fiddly to weave in your ends. Fringe solves that problem. So you get to just bundle the ends together and make a fabulous fringe. And I just think that makes this like this funky, bohemian, joyful knit. I would wear this all the time if I knit it. Now, why am I saying I don't want to knit it if I love it so much? I believe it is entirely brioche. That is not for the faint of heart. That is basically knitting 2 entire shawls. However, brioche is one of those endeavors that is so worthwhile because the look it gives is just, to me, there's nothing that compares to the look it gives. It's just absolutely stunning. And I don't even actually know what technique of brioche it is because it looks like V's or Y's. And I don't know what technique is used to create that, but I do know it is very effective. And I bet you in real life, that shawl is about 1,000 times more beautiful than that picture. And all this talk is making me want to dive deeper and see if I could actually make it, because can you imagine? Like, if I could like swap out my skin for something, I think it would be this. So I don't know. Plus fringe. I love fringe, y'all. I love fringe. It's just the movement. It's just so fun. Anyway, all right. Enough about that. Let me go back to my notes. So that's the Bluegrass by Woolen Pine. Please tell me if you plan to make it because it is absolutely fabulous. Okay, we have 2 more, and I'm going to do them really quickly because they both fall under the same umbrella because they are designed by the same designer. The designer is Skananigans. I love a good pun. Like, yes, totally here for a good pun. Skananigans. The first is the Northeasterly blanket, and the other one is a safe space. I'm going to put pictures of both here. I love this because it's totally scrappy. You can use what you have and it builds upon itself. So I believe it's modular. So either you're connecting as you go or you're picking up stitches. I'm not a huge fan of having to like make a ton of tiny things and then block them together. This coming from the person who's doing an entire cardigan of blocks, but that's a problem for future Lena, not present Lena. These 2 pieces are just absolutely beautiful. I think they would make spectacular baby blankets. I think you can make them really graphic and bold. You can make them more blendy. You could really make it graphic and use solid colors interchanged with white or black or something like that. There's just endless options. I love how creative we can get with our colors and the feeling we're going for when we get to use color in this way. I think like what I found with my baby blanket is like, depending on my mood, I'm drawn to a different color. And so then the blanket takes another direction. This has the same effect. And I even believe one of them is free. I can't remember. But I really find it appealing. And one of these, like the samples I'm going to put up for you to see, one has more pastel colors and it's just more muted, and one has brighter colors. It's just fun, y'all. It is just fun. So that, my friends, is all I have for you in terms of Scrappy project ideas. I hope you find some of them inspirational, some of them helpful if you are looking for a new project. I will add real quick that Stephen West has a free Scrappy DK sock pattern on his Ravelry. So you should, because I didn't have any socks here. So I do want to throw that out there. A real fun way if you are like a, ever-loving sock knitter, and you are mad that I didn't give you a sock. There you go. And it's, you're holding him double. So they're going to be perfect for winter if you decide to go that route. Okay, y'all, that is all the knitting content I have for you. Thank you for entertaining my extreme excitement for this project right now. As you know, if you've been with me over the last few months, I've been like taking this turn towards more muted colors and more rustic yarn, and this project just has me taken like a hard right back to bright colors, because there's room for it all, you guys. If we had to pick a lane, it would be quite boring, but luckily we don't. Okay, if you are only here for the knitting, thank you so much. If you're new, I hope you subscribe and come back. I would love to spend these hours with you talking about knitting, because it is my favorite thing in the whole world. If you are happy to sit and chat a little bit about life, I would love to give you an update on my life, because it's been an interesting couple of weeks. Lots of changes afoot for me. I've said it before here in passing that I teach fitness as another passion of mine. I've always been a very active person. About 8 or 9 years ago, I did my yoga teacher training, and then shortly thereafter, I did some certifications in other formats of fitness, and it just quickly became an absolute passion for me because I love it. I'm very passionate about movement. I think movement is such an integral part of our lives, and I loved being able to just be there in those moments with people. It was just such a gift, especially because at the time, my kids were much younger. I think my daughter was only 2.5 or something. And so it gave me something of my own as a full-time mom. It gave me something else as they started to transition to more school and more independence. It gave me an outlet for creativity and a space for me, a realm for me that was all my own. And I thought it was very valuable to me. It helped, there is nothing on the planet I am more passionate about than being a mother. It is truly like my pride and joy and my calling, and the absolute honor of my life to be parenting these incredible human beings. Not to change the subject, but this is why, moments where someone is coming for your kid, you just rear up and attack. But anyway, but I loved having this other realm, and I was just very passionate about fitness giving people more, using it as a tool to become stronger in themselves, not physically, but like able to take up their space. And the confidence that comes with being physically strong was truly something, and is something I believe in. So fast forward moving states. I moved here, and after the pandemic, I got a job at a studio really near the university here. And I started getting a lot of college kids, very young girls, like 19, 20, that age. And I found that the bigger my classes were getting, like my classes were getting exponentially bigger each week, filled with these girls. And the bigger the class was getting and the more quote unquote success I was having, the more uneasy I found myself. I started feeling like, to me, fitness is a very double-edged sword in this world, in this country especially. I feel like it's almost can be oppressive. It's another thing, and this like, new word, like everything is wellness. It's cloaked in this word that seems really benign, but I sometimes feel, and I'm starting to feel more and more, that I was working in service of something I don't believe in at all, which is we're not working hard and getting physically strong so that we can enter our lives strong and be passionate and go do good work and be strong parents and show up in the world with strength. But these girls and the world I'm starting to see is more, they are trying to fit a physical ideal in hopes that someday either they'll feel good enough, or they're clinging to what they do look like, or they're punishing themselves for what they ate, or whatever it is. It started feeling very different to me. And I started feeling like I was a cog in a wheel I do not believe in. If there's one thing I believe in deeply that I want everybody to always feel, is that they are absolutely perfect where they are, who they are, what they look like. Like, it breaks my heart when I see these girls striving so hard. And I'm not kidding, y'all. They would come in and just burn it down. I mean, if I said, and my classes are hard, extremely advanced. If I said do X, they would do X times 5, and I would have to like stop and go over there and be like, I need you to put those weights down. That's not safe. Like we can't move in that way. And I just felt like there was no way to keep doing what I was doing and say I believe in what I believe in. And I really, really believe there's a season in our life for everything. And I started having the strong sense that the season of teaching fitness is coming to an end. I have stopped and started many times through different transitions in my life. I've gone to different studios, I've moved, I've taught various formats. And I've always felt like I've left the door open to go back and do it in a different way. But this time it really feels like I need to transition to something else. And so I did. As scary as it felt, I gave up my classes, and I told my manager, and she was very sweet and kind and understanding. And I told her I couldn't do it anymore. I didn't tell her why, because she's very young and I don't think it really mattered. But it's just, I wanted to be brave enough to pivot. I think because motherhood has been just such a giant part of my life. My daughter's about to be 10, so I feel like there's less than 10 years in front of me of a child living in my house. And every year they're growing up, they're becoming more independent, and I want them to fly and thrive and live their lives. And it's like always been a very conscious thought in my mind that when they leave, I don't want to be left as like an empty husk of a mother that's done mothering in that phase. I think I'll, of course, always be a mother, but what they need from us changes so much. And it was just very hard to end a chapter that I took great pride in maintaining, because it was always like one of the things, in addition to this, a realm that was my own that I could keep no matter what happened with everybody else and where they flew off to. But I think the recognition came when I thought, okay, do you want to be doing this at 53? I'm 43 now. Would you want to be doing this at 53? And the answer just was like, hell no. Like literal, like just burst forth. Like the thought of doing this at 53 is just, it's not where I want to be. And in that case, maybe if I took the next 8-9 years to build the next thing, to be brave enough to start again with what lights me up now at 43 instead of what lit me up at 34, 35 years old. Rather than, being motivated by fear, like the fear of being rendered obsolete by motherhood, and so clinging to something to define myself, I've just chosen to not participate in that fear, let go, because this is the time for me to let go of that, and be open and curious and excited to explore the world and what could be next for me. I know so much more about myself now than I did 8 years ago. I am a wholly different person, and I think that is in no small part to knitting. I know that sounds possibly absurd, but when I started knitting, a big piece of myself clicked into place. Like it felt like it just felt like my language. And then I, had to get super brave to try this. And this has been just an endless source of true connection and joy and sharing. And I have loved it so much that now I don't need a placeholder. I'm okay allowing some space and seeing where the next years take me. I know the realms that interest me. I know the passions I have. And really, first and foremost, it's how can I do good in this lifetime, in this world? Because I think a lot of times I get so just despondent about the state of the world. And, I wish I could move to Ukraine or any war zone and help. That's not realistic for my life right now. And so I just need to help where I am. I want to be of service. I want to make as many people's lives even incrementally improved that I can. And that I know is where I want to funnel my energy. And I'm ready. I'm ready to be open and curious. And rather than leading with fear, I'm going to lead with excitement. I've found lately, I don't know if you guys have ever found this, but lately I feel like when I've had a big question in my mind, a big turning point or a big, conundrum in my mind, I've found that something appears in some form that gives me the words that I need to hear. When I was having the knitting podcast crisis in my heart, Elizabeth Gilbert, one of her books just spoke to me and carried me through that time. And in this case, I stumbled across an article in the Washington Post by Anne Lamott, who's a very famous author. And I couldn't believe she is 70 now. And you might have seen it. It was actually it was shared quite a bit. But it was an article about aging. And she said in there, I was hoping I had written the quote down, but I don't think I wrote it down here. She talks about how when you're younger, you're always wanting to try harder. Everybody's telling you to try harder, to try harder, to try harder. And she said, somebody wiser in her life had said, rather than try harder, resist less. And I cannot tell you, those two words have just burrowed their way into my head. And at every turn I find myself thinking, resist less. Like when I know something in my heart to be true, let it happen. Let the water flow in the direction it wants to flow. I think a lot of times we are so scared to have that water turning in some way that we just are clenched and clinging. So my goal right now in my life is to resist less, just allow what's coming to come and not try so hard. I always tell my kids, don't try so hard, try easy. Like try, but you can try with ease rather than trying to force something. So that is where I am right now. I wanted to share with you guys because I think this is a universal place women especially find themselves. If you are balancing a career and caretaking, or if your primary role is caretaking, all of it is so valuable. And I am I have so much gratitude, and I'm so grateful for having women in my life that no matter what if they work from home or if they work out or if they're moms or if they're not, are all so, hold space for me within this conversation of like, what's the next thing? We're all kind of always in that space. I just think it's almost like it's such a disservice that we come out of college or high school or whatever, and we're supposed to pick the thing and then do the thing forever and then retire at a certain moment. And it feels like life is so prescribed, and it doesn't have to be. I think we can be a lot more creative with our decades. What works in one decade doesn't necessarily work in another. Okay. That was a lot of words, but I really, really wanted to share because I always like to update you on what's actually happening in my life rather than just what's happening in my knitting. Even though knitting is a big part of my life, there's just so much other stuff that we all deal with. So your knitting always comes with a side of life here. Anyway, it is Friday. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. It is slightly warmer than seems normal to me, but whatever. We have a time change coming this weekend, and I am not looking forward to that. I do not need shorter days in my life right now, but we're going to resist less. Do you see? Everywhere. It works everywhere. I want you to try it and report back if resisting less makes life just a little bit easier. Okay, and we'll save our resisting for where it matters. Fighting for our babies, okay? I will see you guys next time. Thanks for being here. Bye.